to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So attendance, appointment of alternates. Attendance-wise, Cindy Herms is not here, Alan Baker is not here, nor is Danelle Godak. So even though we are one short, we won't be appointing an alternate. But we have a quorum, so we are good. Approval of agenda?
I move we approve agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Yeah, me.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Approval of minutes, regular meeting, December 19th.
I have one change. The April 17th is not a budget workshop. That happens to be a regular April meeting. It's in their listing of meetings as a workshop in the minutes.
Okay. Any other?
April 17th is listed as it's a regular meeting, though, not a budget workshop.
I didn't post it.
Lose track.
I move we approve the minutes as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Oh, any discussion? Although we already did that one. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Public participation. Communication. Anything? And the only thing that I have is the KERMA annual meeting of members. So if anybody's interested, I'm gonna leave it up here. All right, monthly reports.
I don't think there's anything significantly different from last month. Does anybody have any specific questions?
There wasn't much of them.
I didn't see anything when I looked through them that caught my eye.
There was nothing glaring. How's that?
And the only thing that you will see is our annual report was $2,900. And you guys only have $1,500 in your budget. So I was going to take the rest out of printing and toner out of the Board of Selectmen budget to cover it. But we will have to talk about it for the next budget, that make enough money in there to cover it. And the prices did go all the way up to like $6,500, the prices we got, which I don't want to spend that kind of money. But I think we need to do more than $1,500 to be able to get something that we can be satisfied with.
That's because you took the pictures out, right? I'm glad you take 20 minutes. I'll get to the meeting.
All right, anything else?
I guess we should talk about Board of Selectmen professional fees has almost no money left. I know Bob's going to talk about it under his, but it's going to be a place where we're going to have to cover from somewhere else. So we're not looking for a transfer at this time, but you guys need to know we have spent $3,500 on the mill on an environmental study and $1,500 on the mill report, which it is professional services and it was things that were unplanned. So they're spent in the right place, but it doesn't leave room for other things. Like part of that, a big part of that budget, $6,100, is their recording secretary for the Board of Selectmen meetings. So a big chunk of that really doesn't even belong as professional services. I mean, it's a recording secretary. So that's the bulk of that money. So it doesn't leave a lot of room for professional services that need to be covered.
Well, it was budgeted there.
It was budgeted.
Yeah, it was budgeted there for this year,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
it is what it is.
Yep.
I guess when and if the time comes, it's gonna have to be a breakdown of everything that got taken out of that versus
Okay.
what was budgeted to be taken out of that,
Okay.
to see if there would be where things go.
Okay.
CIP analysis.
You have a new analysis this month. It takes the beginning balance, adds in the new appropriations, tells you what they've spent or if there's been transfers in tied to someone giving us money, like in the case of on page 81, about halfway down under town planner, you see CNR sidewalk for $7,800 and CNR open space for $50,000. Those are when developers give us money in lieu of putting in sidewalks or in lieu of having the amount of open space they need in their subdivision. So those are contributions in. Other places you would get contributions in like police department, the police commission gave money out of their private duty admin fees for them to do some renovations at the PD. So that's a transfer in. And that's where you would see cars, if they sell cars, that money will come back in through there to the right lines. And then expenditures is whatever they've spent so far this year. And what the balance was as of 12/31/18. I think it's a good spot to start our budget discussion on CNR. So it just lets you know where everything is, what's out there. I don't know if anybody has any questions, but one of the two things that the raters looked for was doing a better job in our CIP. And this is kind of the first step in it, because the next one is taking these balances, next year's request, what does capital committee approve, what goes forward, and what our 5-year plans are and how we're going to pay for them. So that's the second part that will be part of the budget discussions. But this is the basis that gets us to there.
Step one.
Yep. I've actually done both already, but the other one will come through as part of the budget.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. All right, on to transfers.
So there's two. I don't think there's a big surprise on either of them. The first one is the charter revision has no more money after this month to pay for the recording secretary. They asked for $3,000. We funded $1,500 in June or July. So this is basically the ask for the second half of the year. And then which was approved by the Board of Selectmen on December 20th. And then the second one was the assessor, and we talked about this one in an amount of $500, but instead they've changed the policy. There's going to be a new mileage policy. Was that approved, Bob? I don't know if it, or it's
It wasn't actually approved, but I do have it here if you want me to pass it out.
Well, they got it as part of their minutes because it was attached to the minutes.
Yeah, they just wanted me to put the definitions up at the top of the page, so it wasn't, I have to look to see whether it was approved with that stipulation, they put the definition.
So basically what
Yeah.
they're going to do is make people deduct what they would drive to work. So if I come from my house and go to Westbrook for a conference, I'm going to deduct whatever I would have driven to come to East Windsor on the days where I go straight from home to Westbrook versus, and we didn't have a policy at all. So so it will eliminate, so the assessor now doesn't need as much money because I think it's a shorter commute to Yukon for school than it is for the girl to come here to work.
Right.
So I think that will eliminate, so now she only needs the $350, the $150 that would have been the Yukon class in June gets taken out of the equation based on the new policy. So those are our two transfers.
All right. Anybody want to make the motion for transfer number 15? How did I know? Do we want to make a motion for discussion?
I'll make a motion for discussion.
All right, for transfer 15, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Okay, so let's discuss. Okay, we're not going to discuss either?
I've had a problem with it since the beginning. I've stated my opinion in the past, and it still stands.
What's your, I want to push back hard on this because this is the town charter. Is there a document more important to the town than its town charter? No. So I didn't understand, you said you had a problem with it before?
I voiced my opinion when we approved the first $1,500, and my opinion hasn't changed.
What was your opinion?
Just, we have a budget process. It wasn't taken, it was put in after that, and we knew the charter committee was coming up. And I just don't, I like the way the committee's been put together and run.
You don't like the way the committee's
committee was
been?
put together, and I don't like the way it's, what I've seen out of them so far. So I've been opposed from it right from the beginning. I just think, I'm sorry, that's just my opinion.
Well, and I think one of the key things was that every committee or every group be in the same dollar amount or area. And these guys seem to, this is in excess, obviously, of like the norms. And I know that they have more meetings, I get that. Well, I do and I don't. So I think that was one of the concerns too. I'm just rewinding to prior meeting. Am I wrong? Am I remembering wrong?
Because I did on that, and I think this is excessive. I haven't seen much I'm impressed with when they do the pointer system, and I think they could have done it better. And I'm not impressed with any of it. Thank you, even though I consented to it, I'm not too proud of it today. I consented to it, and forget it.
I'm on the same page with Bill. I've voiced my opinion several times on this. I just have an issue with someone who is representing us in legal counsel serving on the Charter Revision Commission. I still don't know what area he is representing us in. I just have an issue with him making up our town charter, but it's a conflict of interest to me, and I'm just really uncomfortable with the whole thing.
Uncomfortable with the whole thing?
I'm uncomfortable with the fact that the same members that were on the study committee were also appointed to the commission. I have an issue with that also.
I think that there were a few different members appointed. I don't know if that was Rachel on the
No, she was on the first one.
on the study
Yes.
committee.
Yeah.
So, the Board of Finance is not going to fund a secretary for, apparently, for the Charter Study Committee.
I don't think they're going to approve more than what was budgeted, because they
Okay.
did budget. I'm not saying what they're gonna vote on, I'm just saying, I wouldn't say they're not gonna approve, it sounds like, the additional amount of money that's being asked for, Bob, is what I think.
And that negates us having, or the town having a recording secretary for the charter changes, unless we can get money from somewhere else.
Yeah,
I suppose we could have a fundraiser.
You could. I think, one of the things is, Bob, if I see both sides of the coin, but we also do this every year where we say, we talk about this, and Amy, I think we've talked about it too, is looking what your budget is and figuring out how you're going to work within that throughout the year. You would try to hold your departments to that, wouldn't you? I assume, right, for the most part?
We asked for $3,000, you cut it.
Right, but we don't just cut charter revision, we cut everybody. It's not like you know what I'm saying? Every department.
I do know what you're saying.
When we brought it down charter revision, correct me if I'm wrong, and these guys should chime in. When we cut charter revision, it's because their ask was much more than any other group. And we said, okay, they need to work just like other groups do, get it done in a month, stay for 6 hours if that's what you have to do, etc. And I think that's what it was. They funded the $1,500. They just felt they were asking for money in excess of what they should work within their budgetary dollars.
If I remember correctly, the budget passed, and then right after the budget passed, you were asking for more money for this, if I remember
Well,
correctly.
there was no money budgeted
Yeah, there was no
at
money.
all.
No.
You guys
Right.
cut it to zero.
Right, and then they gave the $1,500 back.
Right.
Right, we came
As
asking.
they said, everybody else gets it, so they should get it too,
Yes,
correct?
yes,
Yes,
that's how the 15 happened.
right.
Just trying to look back and see.
The thing is, they're meeting twice a month where other groups meet once a month. So they chew through the money twice as fast.
So
Planning
get more
gets
done in a night and meet
$27.50.
once a month.
Planning gets $27.50. There are a couple places that get more. But so $1,500 is what most of them get.
Right. So where are we going with this? Any more discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Opposed? That did not pass. All right, can I have a motion for number 16?
I'll move we approve transfer request number 16 for the assessor department for the amount of $350 from contingency to travel.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, Bob, you're up.
Okay, just to keep you up to date or talk to you about what we're doing on the Board of Selectmen, one thing we've done is we've made a motion to purchase the Sabonis property. We're taking $16,000 from the Open Space Fund and buying that property, which will have to be approved by a town meeting. And I'll pass that down. If you're not familiar with this property, it's 16 acres. And when you look at the map, you'll see where the Scannick River runs. You'll also see the Scannick Road, and you can see where the old Ellington Road crosses the Scannick River. There's a park that was given by Sabonis that the town currently owns, and then this 16 acres that is along the Scannick River and also abuts Scannick Road. It's outlined in yellow is the land that we're going to purchase for $16,000.
We were given this map at a past meeting a couple months ago.
Okay, so we did have.
So you have seen it
familiar.
before.
Okay.
Yes.
So the section to the right of the yellow is the section that was donated to us in the
Yes.
yellow, okay.
That whole
That's where the
section?
that's where the big sign is?
Yes.
Okay, that's that section. Okay. So it's
Also, we have put a bid in to buy the Grace Episcopal Church, which is down Old Ellington Road, and so we'll see. It's also, there's another party bidding on that, so it is going to be decided this weekend, I guess, by the Archdiocese, so we'll see if we get, if they accept our offer or not. Another thing we're doing is putting forth at the next meeting, tomorrow's meeting, I'll put forth an ordinance, or talk about an ordinance. We won't vote on it, but it'll be for tax exemption for farm buildings. We've talked about that before, we being the Board of Selectmen in, I think in April, but now it's back on the table. And so I do have that if you want to see that ordinance. It's modeled after an ordinance Ellington has. I'll pass that out if you want it. I have it. Actually, I don't have it, so never mind. I have one. The other thing we're doing is we've talked about hemp, and I do have some information on hemp. And this week I went to an agricultural meeting and with the agricultural committee, and we talked about it. And I'll pass this out. This is a newspaper article, and on the next page, the second page, is the various uses of hemp. And this is, they call it, I'll pass this down. They call it industrial hemp, and just in the newspaper article, and we're just starting to look into it. The picture of this is Don Tuller. He's a West Simsbury farmer and president of the Connecticut Farm Bureau. And in it he says that Tuller says of the push to get hemp cultivation that it could bring a farmer as much as $100,000 an acre. I think that's way overstated, but there's a lot of things that you can do with hemp, and like paints and textiles and I guess one of the reasons they outlawed hemp in the United States, other than marijuana is associated with it, is the cotton industry said that they didn't want hemp grown because you could make textiles out of hemp too. After talking with some of the farmers, though, it became clear, because we do have farmland, it would be good to have, give them a crop where they can make money and it would preserve our farmland to some degree. But what they're looking for is a broker. They'd say, before we start growing this stuff, somebody's got to come and say, if you grow so many acres of hemp for whatever purpose it is for, we'll buy your hemp, and that would be a reason why they grow it. So I just thought I'd call it to your attention. And as it says, too, in this article, that the Congress just passed this farm bill to allow hemp to be grown, and Donald Trump signed it, I think, December 20th. So all the states are making regulations for the growing of hemp, but and we're one of them. Some of the states are farther ahead than we are, but that's just another thing that we're working on. And then finally, I'll say that at the next Board of Selectmen meeting, which is tomorrow, Terry Hahn, who has a grant from the state to work on stormwater management and village center development for East Windsor. And, I'm sorry, for Warehouse Point. And what she's done is put together, she studied the Blue Ditch. It's too bad that Alan Baker's not here. And after looking at her slides, because she also presented it to the Planning and Zoning, I was there. And it was almost like you walked the Blue Ditch. So I have a very good understanding of the Blue Ditch. And she said that I think it precedes the Connecticut River. So in other words, when you have a hard rain, the Blue Ditch floods, but then the river's still fairly low, so the water can come out of the Blue Ditch, and then the river will come up, and there's some back water into the Blue Ditch. So that'll be an interesting show if you look at it. Also, she's going to go over the entire project plan tomorrow night. So that's what we're doing in the Board of Selectmen.
I have a quick question, because I wasn't there last night. You guys had a special meeting last night for the fire department?
That's true. You guys being the
Yeah.
fire subcommittee. Or
Yeah.
fire.
Were you there?
I was.
So what happened there? Only because I couldn't go, so.
It was held at the Broadbrook Fire Department, and both fire departments were there, or representatives of them. And there was, I'm going to say, maybe 30 people in the room. And what we talked about was if they're going to expand the district, if we're going to have one district, one fire district for all of East Windsor, then one of the main things to do is to write a charter or bylaws, and there's really different levels, but you have to have I'll call them bylaws, but there's different terms, but some group of rules of how the district commission would operate and how they'd interface with the town. So we have and what they're going to do now is get charters or rules from other fire districts and look at them and try to draw their own rules or charter or bylaws, whatever you want to call them.
Does Warehouse Point have their own for their own fire district?
Yes, they do, in a sense.
And they can't be amended?
Well, no, they can't. That's true, in a sense. And this is the story behind that. Warehouse Point's district was created, in fact, they're going to ask for Barkhampton if they haven't already, because that's probably a good one to follow. Warehouse Point, the fire district was created in 1911, and it was created by a resolution of the state legislature. And because of that, it's very specific and it's hard to change. It says how many commissioners you have to have and such. But later on, the state legislature, and I'm not sure the exact date, I'll say maybe 1985 or something like that, made new rules saying that any district that was made by resolution could say by a vote that they don't want to abide by this resolution anymore, but instead they could accept the state statutes to govern their fire district. So if they did that, then that would kind of open it up so they could write their own bylaws any way they want. So that's the story.
So they're not looking to make one East Windsor Fire Department, take the two and make one?
No,
Yeah,
they're looking
yes.
to make one fire district.
Fire district.
But have two separate departments underneath that. So that everybody shares in the cost of both.
Would that obviously would have to go to a vote for the town?
Yes, it would. It'd have to actually, if they expand the different district, it has to go to a vote for the people not in the district. So I'll call them Broadbrook, but it's everybody who's not in the Warehouse Point district would vote, whether they wanted to be part of it or not.
Yeah. That seems like it would be a hard thing to pass through
It would.
Broadbrook.
You'd think it
Because you have to be
would.
kind of crazy as a, you know?
Well, there's a couple, I think, my perspective is, but that's only my perspective, so it's not worth much, but I think one impetus is that we have to think as a town ahead for when, and we're already hiring part-time firefighters, and they're going to come in the budget process and ask for more. And we should go in unified and not have different, have the towns work, have the fire departments working together. And so that's one aspect of it. Another one is that depending on the charter, and I wouldn't vote for a unified or a fire district that covered the entire town until I saw those bylaws. And I think, in my opinion, what I would want is that the residents, just as on our own budget, vote for the budget. Then I think they should vote. We should all vote for the fire district budget too.
They do, but the problem is, that's held at like a district meeting. So like in Barkhamsted, our fire district has monthly meetings, and in the month of May is their annual meeting where they vote on the budget. The problem is, the 30 people that are there are all fire department related people. Nobody comes out for it. So that will be the problem, is that who votes for it is a very small group of bodies that have their interest in it because they're related to the fire.
I'd like to see that problem solved in the bylaws, and if it's not, then you're right, it probably wouldn't win.
No, the problem is they would have no problem passing it. 30 people show up, they pass it. They got nobody else voting against it.
Against what?
Whatever decision they're making.
Well, yeah.
So when they set their taxes, go look at how many people went to the Warehouse
Oh, I
Point
agree, but you know what I'm saying?
mill rate setting meeting.
Yeah, but what am
You're
I
going to have
saying?
that same general number. I mean, that's what happens.
I'm saying we should have a townwide referendum for their budget.
Well, look at it this way too. I mean, look at it as not one of us, not somebody who's involved. Look at it as just your taxpayer who's at home. And I mean, how much does Warehouse Point pay their fire, like the average person, how much do they pay in their district taxes for the fire department?
Not the same,
person.
they're volunteers.
No, the taxpayer. What is Warehouse Point charge their people? Does anybody know Warehouse Point?
1.5 mils?
I was gonna say it's about 1 mil.
But
It's like $300 a year, more?
more than they have to pay for the other part of the
Right.
town too.
Right. So that's what you'd be asking the Broadbrook taxpayers to start doing. And you might want them to think whole and unified, but when they look at it in just dollars and cents, you're gonna have a hard time pushing that through, I think.
I think the.
By not creating one, by creating, two, kind of,
It
Well,
is hard
maybe.
because they're run differently.
Yeah.
They're staffed differently. right now their budgets are one's twice as much as the others, I think. One's 600,
Well, it
700,000, and
depends.
the other one's 400,000.
That's true, and that's a bigger part of town, but they have more,
Well,
But
it's
it's-
more condensed. It's not a bigger part of town because
well, not
Broadbrook section, it's
Yeah.
way more spread out.
not geographically, but the businesses are down there. And also they have to maintain their property, or this, ours.
Which will be another problem,
Yeah.
because the fire station belongs to the
All these
town.
problems have to be solved, and that's what
So-
we're doing, or they're
How do
doing.
you give it to the fire district?
Interesting. All right, cool. All right, Board of Ed.
Those are for
Oh, you're passing.
Ranking McCurdo, like you recorded way across the room. Don't smile.
There you go.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay. So to the positive, the anticipated budget shortfall, as we reported to the Board of Ed last week, has come down. So I'm not sure that any of you folks got this information, but our curriculum director resigned. She was out on maternity and is going to stay home. So I'm not going to fill the position for the rest of the year with anybody else. Fill the position. The last time we had a gap, there was an MOU with the administrators union for me to get an assist, a little bit of help. So we're going to do that again, but the over-under savings is about $54,000. So we're putting that toward addressing the budget shortfall. And then we had a tuition that dissolved, so someone moved out. So that brought it down. If we consider both savings from the position and then that, we're about 240,000, assuming still that the revenue shortfall from the choice seats that we didn't fill is still offset by the increase in the special ed reimbursement through the choice, which Andy doesn't like me to do, but right now, based on our numbers, that will offset. So the remaining budget, anticipated budget shortfall is about 240,000. So better.
Every month it gets better.
Today.
Today, yes.
Some months it got worse, so we're gonna cross our fingers that
So far, so good. Nothing happened today that made it worse, I can tell you that much. So, so I don't know how you want to do, this. A lot of lines, we can go through line by line, you can scan and ask questions.
How do you guys want to do it?
Let's scan.
You want to scan first?
Yeah, there's a lot of lines, a lot of
There's
information.
definitely a lot of lines.
So, quick question,
Mhm.
only because I'm not used to your spreadsheet as much as I am to mine. The transfer column,
Mhm.
you transferred from somewhere to change that, okay. So,
We transferred the line, the adjusted appropriation is where
Yeah.
the original budget went. There's a
Right.
software glitchy, so you can't put it in the original budget line right now.
Okay.
So
all right,
the transfers are real, and those transfers made the adjusted appropriations to be what they are.
gotcha. And I know you know where the transfers come from, but how do you guys know? I mean, do you have each month get like a transfer sheet or?
There's a monthly report that I generate that we'll talk to at the board, and then, you know, come near the end of the year, it's included in it, like I can present a final year-end budget transfer report. In addition, the internal operations are that all transfers less than $1,000, the program director or building administrator has the authority to do. Anything over 1,000 requires superintendent approval. So that's the internal control.
And there's a budget request
That's
form that
you have to
gets.
justify, even if it's below 1,000, you have to state the rationale why. We present that, we can present that to the board whenever they ask.
No.
There's a lot of transfers.
Yeah, that's the nature of the beast.
Just out of curiosity, the way I read this under, I'm just looking at 122, salaries, teacher aides.
Sorry, can you, page 2?
Page 2, yes, under section 120, salaries, teachers aides. You're showing a negative balance of $543,000.
We have revenue sources that will come in to offset that.
Okay,
Like our choice, excess cost money, the special ed reimbursement through choice, all of that's used to offset
okay,
that.
all right. So like I said, well, I'm reading here that you, between transfer and budget was like 1,600,000, or it's 1,060,000 some thousand, and then we've already spent 648, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and that's, so your encumbered amount, you still have like 900, so that's where that negative 540, but you have the monies coming from this, wherever.
The revenues,
Right.
yeah, those come in.
Some of those revenues come in significantly after.
And then some of these other departments, their hedge earnings balances roughly at like, it's 20,000 here, 30,000 here, that's it. That could be ahead. Okay. So then, under fringe benefits for employees, there's like $1 million negative right there. What's that mean?
That's the same thing.
There's-
We collect, if you look at what we're projected for other funding sources, it is about $2.5 million of other funding sources from federal, state grants and other development accounts. So when those come in,
Oh, okay, so then, when you give us that big spreadsheet,
That's
there's that
exactly-
column there, that's, okay, so that's not included.
Absolutely.
We don't have
Okay.
that column.
We don't have that column in this one. All right, so that's where I'm scratching my head saying something ain't gonna add up here at all. All right,
Yeah,
because I'm looking at this and your bottom line over here is like $1 million off, and I'm like, you're telling me you're only $240,000 off.
if you were to look and see with the narrative that I provide monthly to the board, I always end up having to describe it as the quote-unquote shortfall.
Okay,
Because then I'll put a chart there where I'll show the offsets of the funding sources that we're anticipating receiving that have not come in yet, you know, or partially came in.
okay,
We will reclass accordingly.
gotcha. All right.
Can that be asterisk or something, so we would not be able to recognize those? No? You know, I know you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
If anything, you know what, and you can discuss with the board, I mean, my narrative does
Yeah.
that, I think, in the
Okay.
narrative form, showing that, you know,
Okay.
even though the bottom line shows $1 million, these are the funding sources that we're anticipating from school choice, excess cost, E-rate, Medicaid, et cetera, and
Gotcha.
that shows us then netting against that shortfall.
So actually, this is kind of hard to follow
Without knowing
other
that
pieces.
piece. Yeah.
Well, and we can provide it, you know, we can tell you if you have questions about some of the revenue.
Mhm.
You know, we can
So in some of these lines, like you said, that, appear to be thousands, $20,000 ahead, are not necessarily, because not everything's been encumbered, because we don't, those are lines that we don't necessarily encumber everything on.
Well, and some of them, like all the supply lines, there's a balance because we have a freeze.
Right, so they haven't written a PO, so there's no encumbrance.
Yeah.
So we are gonna need to spend some of that at some point, but it's not specifically encumbered yet.
Gotcha.
Well,
Salaries, you can encumber,
Yeah.
those,
so basically, I mean, just the big thing out of this to me is we're just the first 6 months of the year, or halfway through the year, right? And this is says of.
Doesn't it say?
Does it say-
Oh,
Is it today?
116.
Okay, so we're,
6 months.
and the budget, your budget was like 22 million, 23 million?
23 something.
23. So you're about 50%, so you basically, what you've spent is 50% of what we gave you already, and then you got 6 months to go, so the 240,000 is potentially reasonable, okay. That's the way I'm looking at it, right? Because obviously without knowing the extra monies that you have doesn't show on here, I mean, if we gave you $23 million or to the budget process and you're at 12 million two spent and you're approximately, 50% just a touch over, and I know some
And I guess
things.
it's not explicitly shown in a sense, but it's shown in the sense that, and yeah, I mean, if we were, the true exercise, I guess, hearing now, if this was confusing, would have been for us to come with our big sheets and show you, again, if you remember, we were anticipating $82,000 of Medicaid and E-rate reimbursement. That's why you'll see these accounts in the negative here, so, and then that whole exercise.
Well, like I said, the numbers I have here don't alarm me at all, because like I said, we're halfway through and you're half a year, there's the budget number, 23.4 right there,
That's
so I was looking at it wrong. So, yeah,
Yeah, you're 12.
we're not at $18 million spent and a $23 million budget, we're only halfway through the year, so. Okay.
Certainly if things, we still have the potential, like you said, thankfully, we're mid-January, but on the other hand, we're only mid-January.
Yeah.
So we just have a positive. I mean, the curriculum director resigning is not a positive big picture. It has a positive budgetary impact, but it's not good almost in any other way. So we had two positives from the budget standpoint occur within about a 2-week span. So it's helpful.
But like you said, you could always have a student move in.
Yeah.
Separate.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I mean, at least, and certainly if you have specific questions, like there's some lines that are connected to our technology that are showing a deficit, but we use our revenue from E-rate to offset that. So, I could, if there's lines that are in deficits, we could go through. I could let you know, Andy can tell you what the revenue source will be to offset the deficit of that. But generally, technology deficits are offset by E-rate. Tuition and staff deficits are offset by choice and excess cost, and our special ed tuitions that come in. One deficit that you will see on page 4, maybe just close to halfway down the page on the right, is about $146,000 deficit in our special ed transportation. Now that is connected to the students who have moved in that I outlined previously, all the students who attend out of district placement that have moved in. That's not getting offset. That's part of the $240,000. So
Yeah, well, we talked about that.
yep,
Part of it.
and some of the tuition won't be offset. That's part of the shortfall that we're talking about. Jeremy, I think you were occupied when I mentioned that there are, most of our supply lines have balances. That's because of our budget freeze.
Okay.
So we will have to make some purchases, like we just had to order paper. I think the middle school's looking for pencils. But, I mean, people are being, I will be honest, the staff, as we're going into sort of talking about next year's budget, we're realizing how seriously the staff is taking the freeze on supplies because they're sharing things that they need. It's like, oh, you need to do that now. You need to tell me now you need that. They're really making do and being very creative. And I think they've swung a little bit more to the conservative side than maybe they should, but I appreciate
My
their.
copying quota.
He did, he got shot.
To the bosses.
I had to finish his copies because he ran out of money on the copier, but people are getting very, very creative trying to address my request to be mindful of the costs, so that is really appreciated.
So we peruse.
There's a couple transfers that'll have to be made, some things that happened today that, you know, haven't been reflected, so, but for the most part, we're,
I mean, like I said, he gave us, your year-to-date, where you stand year-to-date as far as expenses go, that's, what we asked, and then, reporting where your number is, and we'll obviously stay in communication as we march towards the finish line. And
absolutely, if any,
we're halfway. We're halfway.
Next time when I come in February, we have a regular budget, a regular board
Yeah,
meeting,
they're regular.
right, okay.
Although I think, no, I lied. Forget it.
You're lying?
That's March.
That's March.
That's March. I know what you're thinking of.
I can bring, I won't bring the thing.
The thing.
But we're not gonna roll it out across the table. But I can bring like a Word document that
Yeah,
gives the anticipated revenue
dollars.
amounts,
Just be a
so.
single sheet of paper.
Yeah, just for your reference, so it's a quick look. I
Yeah,
can do
a summary,
that.
just a summary of, even just like your bottom line number, right, without, whatever it is, that's all.
That's
Easier
fine.
to be-
Yeah,
Mhm.
we'll save some copies so you don't run out of numbers.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, he's gonna have to bag
He has to
it
do
down.
this again, he's gonna be way over
I
the annual
apologize if
budget.
it's on Cradle.
You don't get any credits.
No crayons for me.
You'd have to buy those too.
So again, if you have any specific lines that you want, I'm happy to answer.
This is my third year on the board, and like I said, at this point, it's the first time I've ever seen where you stand year-to-date at halfway through the season, and I do appreciate that. So,
Sure. Happy to.
Well, I think it helps now with the shortfall, but it also helps going into next year, and we're already around that corner.
I know. Yep. We'll provide plenty of detail for that one.
When you say, yes, there are a lot of transfers, and it's one of those things that, I don't say it gets my dander up, because I would love to be able to have as I like to say, the Ron Popeil, set it and forget it. But it's such a transient industry, education, it's not just even here, but all over, where, when we're talking, and I've said it before, and it's a standard cliche of, you build these budgets practically a year in advance of the reality, and when time comes with unknown revenue sources, the ins and outs of personnel, the ins and outs of student needs, et cetera. I mean, it's wide.
By the time we
wider.
start spending it, it's radically different than what we planned on, and then by the time we get midway through the year, it's flipped on its head again.
It is why boards of ed across the country are given the flexibility of their budgeting as they are. To the chagrin of those.
Any questions?
Might have been answered.
Yours have been answered?
Actually, I have a question.
Sure.
It's kind of a dumb question, but.
Now I'm not going to be able to answer it. I can't preface the question like that.
Well, I was trying to understand this. So on page 3, and if you go to 3330, professional tech services, and I just looked at the first line there, so that ends in, I guess, 27.
Bob,
sped.
can you tell me what line again?
Yeah, so it's under
Contracted
the,
services, third.
yeah, contracted services,
Okay.
sped contracted. So,
First line in that
yeah,
section.
you said that The adjusted appropriation is 95,000?
Well, that was actually the
That's the
original.
original.
Okay, the original.
Yeah, that one hasn't had any transfers.
And then was some of the bit, 72,000 encumbered.
Correct.
And then where does this negative 12,000 come from?
So what happened is we actually had a staffing change, and Patrick has utilized the services of a private company to address a student need. And it's appropriately charged there, but he will do the transfer. This is one of the things I mentioned, some of these are pending transfers.
Oh, okay.
So he will make a request to transfer the money from a salary, a para line, into his contracted services line, because we had a para leave and he needed to fill it with someone from
Well,
an
you
agency.
answered it very well, my dumb question, but it wasn't that
Thank
dumb.
you.
I
That's
understand.
because you asked
I knew.
But the negative comes from if you add the 72 of
That's correct.
encumbrance to the 36 that they've already spent,
Oh, I see.
that gets you $12,000 more than the $95,000 budget.
That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Yes. And that's how our reports all look too.
Yeah, okay.
Well, at least I answered.
Yeah, great answer.
Answered, okay. Good.
Amy really
Well,
hit it on the head.
You know, understand.
Yeah, because there's lots of questions we could answer, but you're bound to ask the one we can't.
We'll just leave it up.
There you go. Sweet.
Um,
Anybody else? Thank you.
And I will, no problem. And I will tell you, the cafeteria period has started doing some of the things on the plan. There's a pretzel machine at the high school, and she also had a tasting. So there was a vendor that came in and did a tasting. And she's also started in January, in the January newsletter, putting cafeteria blurbs in the parent newsletter so that they can see. Yeah, she's going to get used to that part.
Did you get any, remember she was kind of looking into how New Britain schools literally,
Yes, I don't know.
okay, I'm just
I
curious.
know, yeah,
How certain school districts,
by-
literally nobody pays, even those who don't have need.
Yeah.
It's a threshold of free and reduced that you have to reach, and we do not reach it
Really?
You have to reach it by school,
by
I
school.
believe.
Correct.
But I think one of the pieces we were talking about, if I'm not mistaken, was that how would that actually end up being, making money
That's,
as
I was-
opposed
that's
to.
the- I don't buy, I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
Just saying yes.
So how does that work to make
Right.
money
It
for
will-
the,
it
how does
will
that
apply,
benefit
yes.
the district?
Right.
If
Would end up-
everybody's
right.
free and reduced,
Because
yes.
I feel like you get less money out of a free and reduced lunch than you do when a student pays for it.
You do, so the question is, how does the
How
state
does that-
make up the
yeah, how does
difference
that
when they
even
offer
work?
it to everybody and
That's
nobody
correct.
pays? How does the
Right.
state make
How
up the
does
difference so
Right.
that
How
you
does
don't?
the place stay on its feet?
Right.
Yeah.
That's correct, without any support.
But, yes. But I did, so to the positive, I guess, we don't meet the threshold. But I did want to let you know, we're moving along with the plan for the food service department, so.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so I'll be back. Or before.
All right, so on to new business March regular meeting dates. And the reason we put this on here,
Is I am not here on March 20th, but I think we're gonna leave it. We decided we were
Yeah.
gonna leave it.
We are gonna leave it.
That's the day they're supposed to turn in budgets.
yeah. All right, so what the, our treasurer will not be here on March 20th, but the bulk of that meeting is the Board of Ed and the Board of Selectmen presenting their budgets to us. That was on the budget calendar.
I believe you.
Yeah.
Listen, I did today.
So for
Right,
the,
but in February, no March.
yes.
That's exactly that one.
So,
Who's got it all?
instead of changing it, I mean, there won't be much more on the agenda than that, so I think we should be fine without Amy. Are you gonna send somebody in lieu of you, like a Gail or a,
I could if you think it's important.
I don't know. I don't know, we can, as it gets closer, we can talk about it, depending on what ends up falling on it. I mean, if we don't have too much to deal with, just the reports and just, you know,
Transfer.
yeah, if it's simple, straightforward, we should be okay, rather than ever spend our money.
I'm here all the way through the 14th.
Yeah, when do you leave? What are your dates that you're gone
The
again?
15th
Okay.
through the 22nd. So I'm here right through
back on the
Thursday,
25th,
that
yeah.
14th, so
Yeah.
that's when I would do your package. Obviously, I don't know if I'll have budgets from either the Board of Selectmen or the Board of
By
Ed
then,
presentations to include in there or not, but all the reports and stuff will be all set by then.
Then it'll be a bullet point, so we don't even need to, yeah, they'll bring copies. Okay, all right. So you guys good with that? That we'll keep it the same and we're all good?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Number 12, unfinished business, budget meeting date schedule.
So our April 2nd and our April 4th meetings cannot be here
Yep.
because they're already someone else, so we really need to know where we want to meet. And that's 12A3 for your piece of paper in there that we need places where we want to, where we're thinking we want to go.
That's April 2nd and April 4th, right?
Yes.
Any ideas?
Park Hill.
Who we talked to about that then?
Who did you talk to when we did Park Hill for CFP?
Amanda arranged it.
So can we,
Teresa Pryor and, I forget the other person's name, but
Okay.
Town Hall has always booked it for me when we needed it for CIP.
can we do that then?
Yep, I will check
Okay.
into it.
Cool, perfect. All the other dates though, we're good, right?
Yep, everything else we're good.
All right.
Obviously, there's no meeting place on the referendum because that's where people vote.
All right.
Kristen, did you guys have a time when you were starting all of your workshops? Because it wasn't listed earlier.
On the Board of
Is it
Finance
updated?
regular meeting, it is 7 o'clock.
Yep.
7? Okay.
The only one that's different is the March 27th after the public hearing.
Right.
Because it'll
We are
follow.
having
Because you can do
immediately
it
following.
immediately after.
Yep. And I
The
think
last
you
one of those
guys
I looked at it, what the times were
I
on
think you
there,
guys
yeah.
might have one that same, no, that's for February.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ours does the
Yours are
February
early,
one.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we're having immediately following the public hearing, and then all our other ones, the 28th, the 2nd, 4th, the 15th, are all 7 PM. And then the 17th is our regular monthly meeting, and that's the night we have to approve our budget for me to be able to do a mailer.
Yep. All right, cool. All right, we're on to number 13, board member comments. Sarah?
Nothing to add.
Nothing good? Okay.
You know, I've been trying to find that community calendar. I missed the old one. I could just click in and we say, look for a tractor, look for a tractor. I looked for that doggone tractor for an hour and a half today and I couldn't find it. So maybe it does work. I do miss the old calendar. I just went on it. And I know one voice doesn't speak much, but I would certainly love to have the old method back because I have to fill this hole between Dick and I. And I don't happen to it. I love that old one. I get to click in.
The website, like where the website, yeah, we switched websites, unfortunately, they upgraded it.
And it stinks. Because I've asked
So I guess
three people and they
looking
couldn't
for
find
where
it
the
either.
calendar would be.
Well, it's right on the front page, you just, you click on
Don't
it.
tell her to click the tractor.
You don't click the traffic.
I was told by Amy
You
and somebody.
clicked on more.
Clicking.
The community calendar?
I missed the other one. I missed the formal one. Terrible. I could just go in there every day, 3-4 times a day. Not now. I
Well,
called 3 people and they couldn't find it either.
you want me, you wanted to try it?
Well, I want to know. I'll come in during the day when I'm literally more thinking. But I don't know why it had to be changed. Why do good things have to be changed?
Because companies do that, unfortunately. That was not our choice.
Well, no, it was our choice.
No,
No, they,
they got bought out.
Well, no, it was, I chose it. It was because the underlying code was 20 years old. This now allows us to do many more things with our website than we could before. But it changed a little bit more. You have to get used to it.
I'm disappointed in it, period.
There you go.
Thank God it's not just me. It's really wrong with me.
and what's a good, the community, I'm gonna go look just because.
Thank you.
I was gonna say, I had a little trouble finding it the first time I went, but then I did.
And they said, look on the bottom of the little tractor. I'm looking, I'm going, there's gotta be something. So I tipped everything on God's earth.
Now I'm gonna have to check.
And then
No,
you
I
had to
found
find
it
go on
since
deep
then.
touch all the way down.
Yeah.
Just not out there, plain and comfortable, everything on.
It's
everything.
not simple,
Thank you.
it's complicated.
Did I say it that bad?
No, you didn't,
I
I'm just
appreciate
saying, that's what
you.
you're saying, it's not,
Thanks.
it's not as easy as it once was.
And don't put words stinks in, it's fine with me. I don't want it.
I think I'm good.
Think you're good?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay. Couple things I have. Cindy Herms has moved to South Carolina. She has not put her letter of resignation in yet, but I did talk to her tonight, and we should be getting an email shortly. So next month, we probably will be discussing, she is a Democrat, so it's up to the DTC to give us a recommendation. Anybody can obviously apply for it, and but they will give us their recommendation. And then we will have to discuss it, if there's more than one person interested, do what we've done before and have them come in, talk to them, and interview both people, and go from there. We appoint a full member, and since it's not an alternate would go to the Board of Selectmen, but our full member is us. But that leaves one crux. Cindy was on the pension board. She's missed a lot of meetings through her move, and they're in the middle of a lot of important things. So, that said, I don't know, do we have to wait for next month, really? Because
Clearly, you guys appoint them to the pension, so if somebody wants to be appointed to the pension, that would be awesome. We have a next meeting January 31st.
I know I talked to Karen, and she just was a little concerned.
Well, I would like to talk to somebody about
Yep.
it before I commit myself. I don't really know what it's about.
And Bill is on it. I have done it. There's no way that I can get from Farmington here at 5:30 on Wednesdays, and even.
The good news is it's the 5:30 right before your meeting.
Yes.
So that's the one
Yeah.
nice thing, and it only happens quarterly.
Yep.
So
Oh,
it
it's
happens.
quarterly.
It
Yeah.
happens in January, April, July, and October.
You've been meeting more frequently now, though, right? Because
Well, we did the RFP process, so we had 3 or 4 meetings tied to that, but that's done. They appointed somebody tonight. So the meeting we're having on the 31st is a special meeting, and it's tied to the status of the negotiations of the pensions. There's a group on the pension group that is doing negotiations with many of the bargaining units, and it's just to get them up to speed. We have a new lawyer working on the negotiation side for the pension for us. He's also working on regular negotiations also, so many people have met him, but he got introduced to the pension committee tonight in their regular meeting, and they are meeting with him, so a lot of it will be executive session on the 31st, but it's really just an up to speed, this is where we are with all the different things where we are and what we're working on. So it's really a quarterly commitment.
I really know, and I mean, I know Kathy's done it before and kind of decided to step back from it, so it really comes down to just
Either Karen or
Karen
Sarah.
or Sarah. Whoever really wants to jump in that ring. Go ahead.
So I can provide some color. I would say that it would be greatly appreciated if whoever's going to do it can get appointed tonight, so they can join us on the 31st, because that'll kind of be a recap of the past year and going forward. I probably wouldn't anticipate, because we already have the negotiating team formed, I wouldn't anticipate much more than quarterly meetings. There might be another 1 or 2 off if we need to kind of convene the whole board to put together, just kind of update people if there's any big movement in negotiations. So I think this year, and hopefully for the next 3 to 5 years, we're not looking at much more than a quarter.
David is the new chairman. He was elected tonight.
Unanimously.
He took it out of the
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
That's a tough one.
That's awesome.
Condolences for
Condolences.
Well, and I have to be honest to both of you, whoever is interested, I didn't step down because I didn't enjoy it. It was just that time constraints, and it was just too much. But it is really interesting, and actually the group that we have who takes care of our pension and the group that sits at the table, you know, it's a really good group, and they've done phenomenal with the pension, so it's very interesting. So, anybody interested?
Sarah, do you want to do it? If you don't want to do it, I'll do it.
Sure, you can do it.
I heard that siren over here.
It really is.
What'd you say, 5:30?
Yeah, but it's the same night as this meeting, so you
Yeah,
just have to come earlier.
So I bring my sandwich with me, or?
Well, it's one less meeting,
31st,
you have to go out another night.
The 31st, we put 6 o'clock, right? That's what I have.
6
written.
o'clock on the 31st.
Yeah, and then the others are 5:30.
Regular meetings are 5:30.
Oh, can I have this?
Well, you can have the dates, but don't take that, that's I got to write it down.
They have another copy though.
Oh.
Somebody took the pile.
That's really so we have enough, you know, I make it 6, but especially for the past few years, an hour has not been long enough, and we
Right.
push up into you guys, so.
Yep, and then I'm in the door going,
Okay,
so you're good, Karen?
yeah.
Could I have a motion to appoint Karen to the budget?
I move to appoint Karen Christensen.
Yeah, and you're the second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion clearly passes.
Welcome, Karen.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you very much. Yeah, so I think that's it. I don't think I have anything else. I think we talked about everything else. All right, so could I have next meeting, February 20th, and a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second? All those in favor? Okay. See you later.
No, we passed.